All of you trolls take notice. What passes for trolling today is but a pale imitation of the great masters. Want proof? Let's take a look at 3 amazing historical troll jobs on Deep Fat Fried.
2022 will be the year that we literally drown you in content. 156 standard 30-minute episodes of Deep Fat Fried, 52 long-form episodes of Deep Fat Fried, 37 episodes of Dank D&D, live episodes of Onion Nuggets every Wednesday, new Cinema for Cynics reviews, Fighting Boys, Abandon Hope, Ideology, Ask Hollywood Love, and The Grease Trap. And even if you manage to watch it all, we still have a massive back catalog of old content that's going to blow your mind. We have got metric tons of old commentaries, grease traps, mountains of Deep Fat Fried episodes. We got oceans of flash fries. We got valleys of Abandon Hope and Ideology and other miscellaneous content you could watch for weeks, if not months, straight. And with all this content, both new and old, we have realized that it is time to simplify our Patreon. Yes! Right now, our Patreon is split into a $10 tier and a $5 tier. Now, this has long aggrieved us because our philosophy in this company is that simplicity is best. How do we create so much content? We keep it simple. We keep it streamlined. We commit to a process, and we constantly fine-tune that process. Anything that wastes time, we get rid of. Having 2 patron tiers is not in line with our philosophy. So, we've decided to unify into a single tier at the price point of $7. Join the Pessimist Productions Patreon today, because we are looking very forward to entertaining you all in 2022.
I love trolls, and I hate them.
You love them and you hate them. Got mixed feelings.
Dude, it's great to be a troll, but then when you get trolled, it's like, I don't know about this anymore.
Even getting trolled is good if it's a good troll, but if it's a terrible troll, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Most of them suck.
I think a lot of people labor under the misapprehension that like trolling is like a new thing. But man, there have been trolls since people have been people. And we're going to cover some good old-fashioned trolls tonight. You recognize the troll on the left here? I'm sure you don't recognize the troll on the right.
Yeah, I mean, I can see in the document that that's Mozart. So.
Yes, we just happen to know anyways, though. That's Mozart, clearly.
I mean, that's Mozart.
Clearly
I would
Mozart,
recognize it
yes.
as well, but yes, of course.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart didn't like the singer Adriana Ferrisi del Bene because of her habit of bending her chin to her chest on low notes and flinging back her head on high notes. He hated watching her sing his music because she had this like thing she did on low notes. You know? And so rather than like, I guess work to have her fired, he decided to troll her by making an entire piece called Come Scoglio that has a ton of jumps from high and low notes so that he could watch her bob her head like a chicken on stage.
That's great.
Beautiful.
I actually got the song being sung here that we can take a little listen to it. Now, if you want to skip about 3 minutes in, that's where you really get an idea of the troll job taking place. So. So he wrote this.
Well, obviously, this woman doesn't have the same habit.
No, she doesn't have the same habit, obviously. But the woman that he hated watching sing his music would like really overextend her neck around and stuff. And so he wrote this piece of music just to make her look like a chicken on stage.
Oh, wow,
To just highlight he wrote an entire piece of music that's still performed to this day with reverence just so he could watch a diva he didn't like. Kind of like look embarrassing on stage.
Operatic trolling, that's a rare form of trolling in itself. I can't think of many times I've ever heard of that before.
I mean, that's a high level troll job right there, and a troll job that lives on to this day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the eternal fire of trolling.
Bless you, Mozart.
I guess he was also kind of like a pretty puerile troll in general as a person.
Well, he was like obsessed with like shit and farts.
Yeah,
and all that.
he was
like you. So,
well, you know, these Germans, you know how they are.
oh yeah, the Scheisen.
So in August 1780, Wolfgang Mozart is then age 24. He happened upon his sister Maria Anna's diary, and pretending to be her, he wrote the following entry, which, like, as a 24-year-old is pretty poor. So I just want to let you know that, like, I think he should have stuck to like musical trolling. I'll read this to you.
All right.
So
he wrote this as a fake entry in his sister's diary.
In his sister's diary. About shitting my humble self, an arse, a break, again an arse, and finally a nose in the church, staying at home due to the whistle in the arse. Whistle not a bad tune for me in my arse. In the afternoon, Catherine stopped by, and also Mr. Foxtail, whom I afterwards licked in the arse. Oh, delicious arse.
He loves arse, dude.
Damn.
He really does.
What a beautiful
Like-
entry. Beautiful
like-
speech, I feel.
I'm gonna write in my sister's diary. And then I licked the arse. Oh, the arse. Arse is everywhere. Arse.
Sounds a lot like you, TJ's obsessed with the arse.
Yeah, he loves the arse.
So
I would never
guess-
call it the arse, though. But yeah.
Back in the day, you would have. You'd have been like, oh, beautiful
Ah,
arse.
yes.
What a-
arse.
Plump, voluptuous arse.
Arse.
What an arse. I guess it wasn't the first time that I guess he tried this out earlier to see if he could get away with it, and he just inscribed terrible arse in her journal at one point, and then I guess he got away with it, so he went back and did that whole other entry. But yeah, Liz, looking at his face, you could tell he was a dude that basically lived for his own entertainment at the expense of everybody else. You just see that gleam in his eye and that look on his face.
God bless him.
The best way to live. What a genius.
God bless him.
Got a little bit of that Habsburg. He's got kind of a Habsburg jaw too, which means he was, you know, probably like at least half insane. So that's good. Most good trolls should be half insane. This guy might take the fucking troll taco right here. This dude, I don't know if you can tell by looking at him, but he is
And yeah, I knew it instantly. I'm like, oh yeah.
He's notorious. This is William Horace de Vere Cole. Probably never heard of him. I'd never heard of him until I started looking into this.
I heard his name.
But his pranks and trolling were legendary. Probably his most well-known troll job is called the Dreadnought Hoax of 1910, in which Cole and 5 of his friends, including a young Virginia Woolf, disguised themselves as the Emperor of Abyssinia and his court, and were given a full VIP tour of the British warship, the HMS Dreadnought.
That's great. You can just show up and be like, yes, I am the king of bullshit land.
Of course. Come aboard the ship.
See our naval ship, the Dreadnought. Look, it's beautiful. Oh, man.
So just for no reason other than to do it, I guess. So proud members of the British Navy, they all came out in their they like got in their honor guard colors and shit. They were all like ordered to like, put on your honor colors, you know, the king of Abyssinia is coming aboard to tour the Dreadnought. And they received their distinguished guests, who were all dressed in like cheap ass costumes with dyed skin. So they just basically put on blackface.
Yeah. They're just like dressed in blackface.
Yeah.
Fucking shit. I love it.
And they all spoke a language that they invented on the fly. The hoax is sometimes referred to as the Bunga Bunga affair.
Just tells you everything you need to know about the language.
Right.
Like, booga, 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 booga,
Dude,
booga.
it was just like an artistic. It basically shows you an artistic performance can pretty much, if it's done well enough, can just convince anybody of anything. Like, okay, these people actually are from a foreign land. And this is like the emperor.
Bunga, bunga.
I
yes,
think it shows you that the military is pretty fucking stupid. At the end of the day.
That as well.
Rungity, bung, bang, gunga, gupto.
I don't know, Paul. You might have fallen for it back in the day, dude. You might have been
Maybe
like,
I
all
would
right.
have. I probably would have like fallen for it on purpose, just to
Yeah, just
see
see what
these guys.
happens.
What are these guys up to? Like, I want to see what this troop of weirdos is up to, and maybe that's what went on. But this was a big kind of scandal at the time, I think, and probably for good reason. Here's a picture that was taken to mark the occasion. And that's William Horace there in the center, lording over his creation. I guess he was the English emissary or whatever that it translated for the Unga Bunga tribe.
Oh yes, he says he's impressed with the frigates. It's like, all right, cool.
Oh my God, dude. The Dreadnought Hoax has often been interpreted as let's just see if we can get away with it sophomoric prank. But others imply that it may have a sharper barb intended to it. Gilbert Hyatt writes that the imposture exposed the uncritical readiness of the British government and the Royal Navy to entertain any odd-looking foreigner without inquiring closely into his character and background, and do him the honors so thoroughly that he went away awed and happy and pro-British. That kind of diplomatic courtesy helped build up an enormous empire to keep many spheres of influence in orbit. The Dreadnought Hoax was a mocking exposure of its shallowness and insincerity. Thus, the silly little blackface impersonation by half a dozen unemployed youngsters proved to be a satire on the entire British imperial system. So, you know, basically they just they were so, the British were so, trained to ingratiate themselves to the leaders of these little empire areas, and they wanted these people to go back home with this really pro-British thing that they would just lavish
the British. They're wonderful.
Lavish, entourages from these different countries.
Well, they give them a tour now.
And you can see on the left.
The Archbishop of Assyriama.
I'm pretty sure Paul's theory of they just want to see what the fuck was going to happen. What the fuck is this?
Maybe
so. So Cole might have been in training for the Dreadnought coup when, as a student of Cambridge, this is not him, by the way. This is the actual Sultan of Zanzibar. But he impersonated the Sultan of Zanzibar and got himself wined and dined along with his entourage of other Cambridge students by the high mucky mucks of the area. So he'd pulled this off before to get himself in some kind of upper crusty party, and just using a costume that he made and probably putting on some blackface and saying that he was the Sultan of Zanzibar. So that's pretty awesome.
It's pretty crazy that you could just show up somewhere in some fancy clothes and blackface and be like, I am the Sultan of Zanzibar. And people are just like, wow.
If you know nothing about Zanzibar, I mean,
that's
maybe.
Crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, if you have enough of an entourage, you can pretty much convince people of anything.
Beautiful.
I guess so.
Especially back in them days.
Back in them dark days.
Nowadays, people be like, Sultan of Zanzibar. You're not the fucking Sultan of Zanzibar. This guy is.
Get out of here, you. But these days, I mean, how the fuck would they know any different? Or back in those days, how would they know any different? You know,
take him on his word.
They clearly didn't.
Well, I'm sure not everybody could pull this off. This guy was clearly talented at finding the right venues to use this at and not overindulging in it, and for him to get away with it so many times. So one of his master pranks was one where he stood on the street handling theatrical performance tickets, and he handed them intentionally for free to a series of extremely bald passersby. He gave the tickets to bald people that were carefully chosen to be at certain places in the audience. Everyone took their seats, and when the show started, the bald men's heads reflected the light from the stage. And as a result, the bald men's heads shined with a word that spelled out bollocks.
Which means balls.
Right, balls for those. And other sources claim it was only 4 men's heads and the word was fuck. Which one is true? Who knows? But it could be seen from the stage and the balcony. And it was an uproarious kind of thing. He just had these guys put reflective letters on their heads in exchange for free theater tickets to see a show. And he claims he ruined a pretentious and terrible play by calculatingly giving tickets to selected bald men with their heads painted with the single letter that he wanted to be reflected by the lights. So the people that did it could all see that their play was shit. What about your fucking bollocks?
That's a good way. That's a good way to give his review of the play.
The Time Life Library of Curious and Unusual Facts reports that Cole often targeted his peers. For example, playing on the innate good manners of the well-bred English gent, Cole would pose as a surveyor on the street and politely ask a passing swell to help by holding one end of a string for a moment. And then he would disappear around the corner and find another man to hold the other end of the string and then walk away. And probably to a shop nearby to see how long they stood around the corner holding the string.
Jeez, how long is this going to be?
He would find these like English gentlemen that had this like code of extreme honor and shit and see how long he could keep them like standing there.
Pardon me, sir. Could you hold this string for me for just a moment, sir?
Oh, well, of course. I'd be happy to. I'll be right back, sir. And he'd walk around the corner and, sir, could you hold this string for me for just a moment? I'll be right back. Oh, well, of course, son. And then he'd go across the street to the soda fountain and just like, watch them fucking waste their time. He was also fond of spontaneous pranks. When he stumbled on a road crew without a foreman one day, Cole leapt into the breach, directed the men to London's busy Piccadilly Circus. So he found this like crew of construction dudes that worked for the city that looked like they were waiting for their boss. And he was like, hey, you slackers, get over there to Piccadilly. And he had them excavate a huge trench in the middle of the street. Nearby policeman was like, oh, yes, obligingly like redirected the traffic around it for him all day. And it was several hours after that before the city even noticed that the unauthorized, you know.
Dude, he just took control of the fucking construction crew.
Yep.
It's like, go to, no, we're digging a hole in Piccadilly today.
That's like
Come on.
That's like some Ghostbusters 2 shit, dude. And just start drilling in the street.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
You know.
Well, he actually pulled it off, and to a greater extent than them. You know, I mean, he just basically took control of the local authorities just with sheer brashness. Got himself like a team of unwitting construction people and had them destroy a street.
Just dig a hole.
Just for the lulz.
All right. Let's do a social experiment. I'll just show up at different places and be like, I'm your boss now. Deal with this shit. It's bound to work at some point.
Hey, it's me, your boss. Anyway, go dig a hole. It's like, can I see some identification or something?
These guys were...
Get your ass into the fucking ditch and dig.
Shut the fuck up and dig the hole, you
Go destroy Piccadilly Avenue now, or you're fired.
We're shutting down the freeway.
He walks over to the cop that's on the beat, and he's like, I need your help there, officer. We're doing a really, there's a dangerous pipe underneath Piccadilly here. We're going to need you to direct traffic around it. Can you do that for? Oh, of course, son, of course. He basically like was born at the perfect time. He took, because like you can imagine, especially the higher society shit was just so polite back in the day. Like, people were not used to being lied directly to or rused, and so the pickings were probably pretty good for a person that knew what they were doing for some social engineering, and he was kind of a master of it.
Sounds like it.
Just like a golden age of trolling for sure.
Nobody knows who's... have you guys heard of the Piltdown Man hoax?
Yeah, like the fake fossil. It was like the missing link kind of thing, right?
Right. It's a missing link hoax that ran in the science books for a long time as... you know, one of man's earliest ancestors, and then it was discovered to be a hoax. He's he's on the list of people that
possible.
Shocking. Can't believe he'd be on the list.
Pulled it off. We don't know for sure, but it could have been William Horace de Vercole that pulled that one off. And you know, I don't know why this one is my favorite, but it is. He would occasionally impersonate the prime minister and Labor Party leader named Ramsay MacDonald and give big political speeches out in public that contradicted his MacDonald's actual political positions. So like he would go and He would just pretend like I guess back then, people had only seen pictures of the guy, and so he would do his mustache up to look like him, and he would get a couple of his friends to act as like royal guards or whatever, and he would set up in the street, and he'd be like, yes, come in here, Ramsey, give a speech, and people would go, oh yes, and then every opinion he gave was like the opposite of the guy's actual political opinion, so he basically anti-stumped for the guy.
If I get a Trump impersonator, convince a bunch of Trumpers that, it's actually Trump, and they actually hear the speech, of course, then giving the exact opposite positions. So you couldn't get away with that shit.
We need more Muslims.
Yeah, you couldn't get away with that now, because they'd be like, no, that's not Trump, man.
That ain't Trump.
That ain't Trump.
He
would have told us.
Trump.
So this guy definitely,
This is troll. This is like just more troll.
Just an absolute dyed in the
Look at
wool.
his neck. His neck is fucking 20 feet long. I mean, that dude's a troll for sure.
Yeah. So this is Theodore Hook, our final troll of the night. Theodore Hook, he may have pulled off the greatest troll job of all time. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me if you think there's been a better one at the end of this. But this is an intricate and involved troll job, but shockingly simple. So it really is a brilliant moment in the history of trolls, I think, personally. So in 1810, Theodore Hook shut down a large part of London only because of a bet with his friend. He was the perpetrator of the so-called Berners Street hoax. It all started when he made a bet with his friend, Samuel Beasley, that he could make any home the most talked about address in London within a week. So apparently it was probably some braggadociousness going on. He was bragging about what a good PR guy he was and how good he was at advertising or promoting businesses or whatever it was. And it ended up escalating. I mean, you guys know how this happens as brothers. I've seen it happen.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Prove you can do it then. Oh, yeah? You want me to prove it? I'll fucking prove it then. And so they ended up making a gentleman's wager. This is like really sociopathic trolling because he just basically ruined half of London for a day. You know what I mean? On a bet.
You know what? Sometimes extreme things like that call for extreme measures.
So what he did was he spent some time at home writing thousands of letters that were all to be sent to these various different people all over the spectrum in terms of services. So we're talking sweepers, coal sellers, cake makers, doctors, lawyers, priests, vicars, piano sellers, fishmongers, shoemakers, dignitaries, many other service providers. Anything he could find, basically, in the list of businesses around London that offered a service where they would come and deliver something to your house or send someone to your house to do a service, he sent a letter to.
Dude.
And he sent all of these letters in the name of Mrs. Tottenham, who lived at 54 Berners Street.
Like he engaged every business he could think of in that area just to come all. Okay, I know where this is going.
Yep. In the letter, he requested services, visitors, deliveries, and assistance. And soon the narrow street became highly congested with this huge amount of people. There's actually a painting of it, or a daguerreotype, or whatever they call that, of it. I'll make it full screen for a second so you can look at it. It's just bedlam in the streets.
At this point,
they're all trying to get in. Listen!
They probably, with a crowd that large, they probably don't even know where, they're like, half of them probably don't know where they're going. There's people pushing towards, hey, we gotta go here. No, we gotta go here. No, it's this building. No, it's this building. And this obviously going to be total bedlam and confusion. Look how many fucking people are showing up. You get that many people together, everyone's going to be confused.
So due to all of this, a huge part of London shut down because all the people showed up at the same address at the same time. So he basically used these thousands of letters that he wrote to concentrate a huge amount of the services available in London on one tiny little narrow street at the same time on the same day, which, as you can imagine, created a huge traffic jam, which basically shut down commerce in most of London's like business district for the day.
Oh, a bunch of people too was just like, why is there a bunch of people there? Because crowds like beget crowds, dude. It's like, what's that? What are those? What's that group?
What's going on here?
What are those apes doing? Oh, that's crazy. What are those other apes doing? And it just builds from there.
I don't know, man. This right here is got to be one of the most heartless. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but like, dude, the amount of people's time that got wasted by this troll job, has it ever been matched in the history of history?
Not that I know of. I mean, there have been, because there's a fine line though. There's been, I think there's been greater scams, but troll jobs.
Well, a troll job
this
is
isn't
like
a scam. This is
like
just
a scam is like if you're doing this for like some kind of like I'm gonna get rich off.
No,
of
I
this
get
somehow.
that.
But like this
so
is
I'm saying
just
like I can think of greater scams
this
than
is
this.
just purely like I'm fucking with people.
But yeah, on a pure like I mean, there's probably people that argue some shit that's been done on the internet because it reached more people. But this had actual real world impact. A lot of that trolling shit is just like, people's feelings got hurt or some shit.
right.
This
There was
is
a big argument online or some shit,
Some
but
people
like, this is
the
like
streets, maybe
a significant portion of London's industry was shut down because this dude ordered every service in town.
Maybe the people who are still at Dealey Plaza waiting for JFK Jr. to come back from the dead.
Yeah,
they might have got trolled harder.
That's true. QAnon, maybe.
QAnon might be a bigger troll job, but I don't know.
Because it has gone on and on.
But it never shut down a street, though. Not like this has.
No, that's true. And this was like not even like ideologues either. This was just like trolling capitalism, basically. It was just like, let's call every service that's trying to get everybody's business. I have this excerpt from a newspaper at the time that I think is most descriptive. It starts with a hoax. That's the headline. This very malignant species of wit was yesterday most successfully practiced at the house of Mrs. T. So I guess they censored her name. So probably to further discourage people from doing this again or whatever the fuck. A lady of fortune at number 54 Berners Street, which was beset by about 36 tradespeople at one time, with their various commodities, and from the confusion altogether, such crowds had collected as to render the street impassable. Wagons laden with coals from the Paddington wharves, upholsterers' good by the cartload, organs, pianofortes, linen, jewelry, and every other description of furniture were lodged as near as possible to the door of number 54, with anxious tradespeople and a laughing mob. So so this was like further exacerbated by the fact that like people walked by and they were like, look at this.
What's going on here? Let's go look at what's going on.
That's what I'm saying. For a fact, anything like that's going to draw a crowd immediately because it's like, you don't see that shit every day. It's like,
what's this happening here?
I love that, dude. So not only are all these frustrated people like, how are we getting paid? She needs to sign me invoice and try to beat on the door and maneuver around the pianos and big rugs and shit.
Shit keeps showing up, dude. Crowd gets bigger.
It was like he created a giant gypsy bazaar in the street, but with nothing to sell. You know what I mean? Nobody to sell it to. Everybody keep walking by, like all the people walking by just kind of like stopped to like looky-loo, like of course they're gonna do. I love this shit. It goes on. About this time, the Lord Mayor arrived in his carriage, but his lordship's stay was short as he was driven to Marlborough Street police office.
Of course.
At the office, his lordship informed the sitting magistrate that he had received a note purporting to come from Mrs. T, which stated that she had been summoned to appear before him, but that she was confined to her room by sickness, and requested his lordship would do her the favor of a call on her. So he even like involved like local like magistrates.
Yeah, so, like fucking involved like local.
Yes,
lords.
I shall pay a visit to her.
Please pay a visit upon me, Lord. I'm bedridden with illness.
But I would still like to make my appearance. So he gets his whole entourage together and finds the street just in complete disarray. Berners Street was by this time in the greatest confusion by the multiplicity of tradespeople who were returning with their goods and spectators laughing at them. The officers at Marlborough Street office were immediately ordered out to keep order, but it was impossible. The first thing witnessed by the officers was six stout men bearing an organ, surrounded by wine porters with permits, barbers with wigs, mantua makers with bandboxes, opticians with various articles of their trade.
It sounds like a festival, dude.
And such was the pressure of tradespeople who had been duped that at 4 o'clock all was still confusion. The street was not cleared until a late hour, as servants wanting places began to assemble at 5 o'clock, besides a coffin, which was brought to Mrs. T's house, made to measure. There were, I don't know what this is, accoucheurs, tooth drawers, miniature painters, and artists of every description.
Wow, he really went all out.
And that's
Dude
the
fucking
entire
invited
article.
literally everybody in town to this fucking address for some reason.
And they all took him up on it, dude.
So an accoucheur, by the way, is one that assists in birth. So basically, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you know...
Dude, the birth of a troll job, man.
I mean, think about all of the people who were waylaid from, like, legitimate social functions by this, too. You know?
It created a fucking mass traffic jam at a time when those didn't happen because they're just, you know what I mean? There was
But not only that, like, how many of these tradesmen and stuff were probably
out of business all day.
Right, and could have been better served, could have been better suited.
Oh, yeah,
elsewhere,
lost business.
You know?
And well, that's why a lot of them stuck around, too. I mean, that wasn't just confusion. It's like, you want to get paid. So there's, like, at some point, this idea,
at some point, too, people want to know what the fuck is even happening. They're, like, just, like, standing around, like, what the fuck is even going on here?
It just
like,
became a spectacle of epic proportions. And you got to imagine that, Theodore Hook and his friend were probably in one of these apartments above the street up there.
Yeah, probably over square, like laughing down.
Just laughing their fucking asses off all day long at what they'd done.
I wonder if they ever I don't know, man. They might have fucking been at some point like, oh fuck, maybe we've gone too far with this. But
probably so. I didn't find they admitted it years later after it had become like a local legend or something. And I didn't find anything about them being punished for it. So I guess they waited until the statute of limitations had gone by and people had chilled out.
People were just like, until it was like, more of like a joke.
Oh, yeah, we finally remember that day on Berners Street.
Yes. You got us good. And then,
So it's anyway, I did it.
That is a look at some historical trolls. If you like this, there's tons of these, including one that got cut from tonight's list, but may show up on the next one. Benjamin Franklin, a notorious troll. I'll give you one fact about Ben Franklin before we leave. Ben Franklin was such a troll that the founding fathers had to each individually proofread the Constitution of the United States to make sure that he hadn't slipped in any double entendres or jokes or sexual innuendos.
Beautiful.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
So if you liked this, let us know in the comments. See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.